Welcome to Open Door Center for Spiritual Living in our inaugural Sunday service. I'm going to be so glad when 12, 30-year-olds around. Yeah, it's been a wonderful experience, and it is wonderful in every moment. So I just, again, want to welcome all of you. I know some of you have traveled from very far. I think Ann gets the prize for coming from Macon, Georgia. I so appreciate it. Folks coming from Asheville and Hendersonville and Otto and all kinds of crazy places on top of mountains and Whittier and where are you, Clyde?
No, actually I'm in Crusoe.
Crusoe. Okay, yes, that is on a map. It is in Western North Carolina. Cashiers. We have Waynesville. We have all kinds of places. Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you.
And even Sylva.
And even Sylva. Choice to come today. I am so gratified by your presence and by this experience of Open Door Center for Spiritual Living falling into form. This is what our teaching is about. This is what our movement does. It changes lives. It transforms the world by knowing that we can do what we decide to do. And that is what we're going to talk about today. My talk for you today is entitled Who We Are, because I know that we have individuals in this room who have a very, shall I say, brief relationship with religious science or science of mind. So if you're fairly new to this teaching, just put your hand up. If you're fairly new. Cliff's and ministerial school, get out of here. You don't need to be up here doing this. Cliff is going to come speak, by the way, in July. Yeah, he'll be back with us again soon. Wonderful. So we have a lot of folks who are new to this. So today it's going to be a little bit of a history lesson about what science of mind or religious science is about. You're going to hear those terms used interchangeably. They mean the same thing. They'll make more sense, hopefully, by the time we're done here today. And I promise to not speak too long. It's very exciting, I want to say, first off, for me, to be here. To be having this experience of being a minister and having a community in which we now have Sunday services, New Thought, and a New Thought community here in Western North Carolina. 6 years ago, I had no idea. And a lot of that, for me, is reflected in a quote that we have here. I've got to have these on. From Rumi. Rumi tells us, knock and love will open the door. Vanish and love will make you shine like the sun. Fall and love will raise you to the heavens. Become nothing and love will turn you into everything. And to me that statement is about letting go and letting the divine happen through us, as us. And for me that has been my path for many years. I haven't let go easily, and I still don't. Most things have lots of claw marks and, 4-letter word epitaphs attached to them, okay? I'm still one of those kind of brilliant speakers. When I get going, I can get pretty feisty. But it has been a lot of what, about a year ago over in Asheville, Kathy Hearn, who was then the spiritual community leader of United Centers for Spiritual Living, the predecessor to our parent organization, said when she talked about becoming a crystal clear straw through which the divine may live and move and have its being. And so that for me is what this journey has been about. 6 years ago, I was looking at selling my home that I'd been in for 23 years, moving 2 miles away. I think I only did that just to get rid of 23 years worth of stuff. Reconfiguring my life, leaving a job that I loved, and turning around and going to school in ministry, and I had no intention, literally, when I look back 6 years ago, I had no intention of ever creating spiritual community. I went to lunch with a gal one day who had been in practitioner training with over in Asheville, Stephanie Zing, and she said, "Oh, you need to start a group out there in Sylva. And then when you get done with being a practitioner, your training here, you can go out there in the world and do this." And I just thought, like hell. I'll never be big enough and brave enough to do that. It's really amazing what happens when you do let go. It's pretty phenomenal. So I'll tell you just briefly, about me and how I came into this teaching. In 1986, in June of 1986, I experienced an injury to a foot. I was on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and it was a full moon, and it was about 11 or 12 o'clock at night. We were hiking in, and I tore all of the muscles out of one of my feet. And I didn't really tell anybody I did that until we stopped hiking. Okay, I just kind of crawled the rest of the way. I think we're a couple of miles in. And when I took the tennis shoe off, the foot did this, and I couldn't get the shoe back on. And the next day, someone on a Palomino hauled me out of there. He had had quite a bit to drink. I had not had anything to drink in about 6 or 8 months at that point, so I was still kind of hanging on to everything, trying to figure out which way was up. And the next day, someone showed up at my house, and they gave me a copy of Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life. And I read that book, and it changed my life. We don't have it in the bookstore yet, but we will. If you haven't read it, I hope that for you it is as much a kiss on the head, metaphorically speaking, as it was for me. There were things in that book that were hard to digest, but it truly planted the seed, and that is what this teaching is about. We understand that what we are doing in the world is planting the seeds of change, and that when we think, literally every time we think, we send forth something that becomes something new and something vibrant. And so that is what really this teaching is about. And the seed was planted with that injured foot. I was only on crutches for about 2 days, and everybody was really grateful because I was really unhappy about the whole situation. So, the founder of religious science or science of mind, Ernest Holmes, tells us this little brief statement about our philosophy. Religious science is not a personal opinion, nor is it a special revelation. It is a result of the best thought of the ages. It borrows much of its light from others, but in so doing, it robs no one. For truth, and that's capitalized, truth is universal. You can't take it away. You can't call it a specific religion and confine God. It doesn't work that way. So Ernest went on to tell you a little bit about him. He had been born in 1887. He was the 9th boy of a family of 9 children. His mother was glad. We're going to have her picture, if I can find it, next week for Mother's Day. I think she kind of probably deserves canonization or something. 9 boys in the great state of Maine in the 1800s with no electricity and none of that really cool stuff, that we have today, like the Amazon and the internet and, all that groovy stuff to keep Cliff's music, all these wonderful things, to kind of keep kids happy and occupied. She didn't have any of that. She had a strong desire, though, and part of that desire was to train her children, or to let her children know that there was nothing to be afraid of in life, that what created us, what brought us here, was here to support us, was here to love us. She did not want her children growing up in an atmosphere of fear. And in that day and age, that is, even now, really, in many situations, that is to be commended. Ernest was a brilliant child. He was one of those kids, if we had had electrical outlets at that point in time, he would have been jamming things into them and, getting shocked and going, why? Because he asked questions about everything. He didn't have a lot of formal education. At 15, he stepped away from the formal classroom. He decided if he went to work, he would be of better use. And he really thought they weren't helping him. I'm pretty sure that was probably true, too, because he was really a brilliant person. But he read and he studied. He read voraciously all throughout his life. And he studied everything. He studied world religions. He studied philosophy. He studied science. He studied amazing things. And really and truly, science of mind is the culmination of all of those things that he took on, that he read. It has been said about him, and I don't know where this information came from. There are a few people still alive today that actually had the experience of knowing Ernest. They were usually babies, and now they're 80-year-olds. They were very young people. But I remember one person saying that he had one of those kinds of memory where he had books everywhere, just had tons and tons and tons of books, probably a lot like Lou's house, books everywhere. It would be like my house if I would quit moving and getting rid of them. But he had stacks of books everywhere, and if he was in conversation with you and he wanted to refer to something, he could walk to a stack of books, pull out the one he wanted, turn to the page, and begin to quote the book. Is that not amazing? So he was obviously brilliant and carried the seeds of divine imagination within him. Let's see. He did do some formal education, and that was pretty much instrumental in the formation of Science of Mind. As a young man, he left home and he went down to Boston, and he enrolled in this thing called the Leland Power School of Expression, which I could probably go to. It was a school to teach public speaking. And while he was there, he met several people who were Christian Scientists. And he found that a very interesting study. What those Christian Scientists told him, and of course this is based on the belief system that was developed by Mary Baker Eddy, is that they were having profound physical healings through prayer. And what Ernest realized, very simply, was that if that worked for anyone at all, ever, it could work for every one of us. That there was nothing different between me or you, or Ernest, or Jesus the Christ, or anyone else. And he recognized that, and he really took that to heart. And he began to do a lot of writing, and he moved to California. He had a brother named Fenwick who had gone to California because he was not well. And so Ernest left the Maine area and went out to California. And he went to work, I believe, for the city of Venice, California. I don't remember what he did. I think he was a purchasing agent. But while he was there, he began to speak. He was always dragging in books about philosophy or something like that, and having them in his office, and people would come in and ask him, what is that about? What is it you're reading? It looks pretty, pretty cumbersome, pretty thick. And he would begin to talk. And people were entranced by what he was telling them. And they would say, finally, one day, a lady came into his office and she said, the conference room at the library down the street, I've reserved that for you. Here's the date and here's the time, and you're going to come and speak to these people, and we're going to charge admission, okay? And I think they charged a quarter, He got like 4 cents out of every quarter or something. I don't remember the amount. It wasn't very much. But people fell in love with what he had to say. They heard truth in his words. And those communities, those speaking engagements grew. He developed a speaking circuit all over the United States. And finally, in the late 1920s, he went back to California. He was tired of fooling around, tired of, travel was not what it is today back then. Today I can get on an airplane this morning in Asheville and be in Hong Kong, in relatively 12 hours, short period of time. It's pretty phenomenal, He couldn't do that. I'm sure he spent a lot of time riding trains, and that probably got old. So he went back to California, and he began to write and really put those thoughts down on paper. And, from that issued, I don't know how many books he's written. The best one that he wrote is The Science of My Text. We have it for sale in our bookstore. I bought that book when I started at the center in Asheville, probably 9 or 10 years ago. And, it's a book like this, so I just wasn't going to go back over there. I figured I could read the book and get it all, right? So I get the book and I start reading, and I'm like, take the classes. It's much easier. Come to our classes. It's much easier. But buy the book, too. It's a wonderful book. Yeah. So Ernest studied a lot of different things. And one of the things he studied was Christian mysticism. And he came to believe the very core teachings of Christianity. He got it that we are made in the image and the likeness of the divine. And that therefore we're powerful, just as the song says, powerful, creative, spiritual beings. That we are here to do God's will and God's being in this planet, in this body. Running around just in every word we speak, in every thought we think. All of it. We are the divine expressing. He got it that Jesus the Christ was not the great example. He was the great example, not the great exception. That he was a way shower. And he came to tell each and every one of us, these things and more shall ye do. There's no difference between Dorothy's prayer or Marcia's prayer or Jesus the Christ's prayer. Every single one of us, are that powerful. We are that potent. We have only to know that. We have only to claim that. And it will fall forth in our lives. Not just for ourselves, but for other people too. And when I look around the room, I see people and I know the miracles. Is it not phenomenal? Yeah. Is it not amazing? Healings, physical healings that have happened. Changes in relationship, in community, in jobs, in families. I had a powerful experience back in February. We went down to New Orleans, and while we were there, I have a checkered past. We won't go into that too much. You'll have to come back, okay, to get more of that. I'm not going to tell you all everything on the first date, for God's sakes. But we went down to New Orleans, and while we were there, we went, they don't bury people there. They entomb them, right? Put them in mausoleums. So we went out to this, was one of the, Louis I Cemetery, I think it was.
St. Louis Cemetery.
St. Louis Cemetery, okay, there were two of them, St. Louis one. And where we went is the tombstone, the tomb or whatever, the mausoleum of Marie Laveau. And I want to tell you that as soon as I heard her name, I felt the earth tremble. And I went, that woman is my sister. Okay? Marie Laveau was the voodoo queen in the 1700s who supposedly, are you sitting down, handled all the prostitution and all the liquor, okay? And she was the spiritual woman. She was the spiritual hallmark of that area, that New Orleans area, that they called when someone was going to die and they wanted them to go, witnessed, okay, carried in the hands of the divine, where they wanted that passage to be easy. She was the person they called when someone got really sick and they knew it's not their time. Keep them here. Heal them. They want to stay. They have more to do. So she was a wild, wicked, spiritual woman, just like me. So I went to the mausoleum of Marie Laveau and I said a prayer so profound for someone that I love that their earth shook. I love it, okay? Their world trembled and their life changed, okay, for the huge betterment in just the recent past. Yeah, we, each and every one of us, are that powerful. We're amazing spiritual beings. So Ernest studied other things. One of those was Greek philosophy. Cliff knows about Greek philosophy. Yeah, right. I know, that was like the worst class in school. He studied Plotinus. And here's a piece from Plotinus. He says, I do not argue, I contemplate. And as I contemplate, I let fall the forms of my thought. So those seeds of thought, whether they're positive or otherwise, as they issue from our minds, they meet up with divine law. And this law always has one answer. What is that answer? Yes, it is that answer. Yes, it always says yes. It doesn't argue with us. It doesn't dicker with us. It says, wouldn't you rather have bran cereal than bacon and eggs? I would rather have the bacon and eggs, thank you. It doesn't argue. It always says yes. And so, literally, we can see that truth coming from Greek philosophy into science of mind, coming from biblical truth, where what you sow is, am I saying that right? What we sow is what we reap. I always like to say that backwards. What we think is what we'll bring forth. It's a basic proposition in this teaching that things can be resolved into thoughts. Ernest Holmes also studied Eastern philosophies too. He studied Buddhism and Hinduism. And like those, we believe that God is absolute, unconditioned reality, expressing itself in all that is, like a flame that takes many shapes. We see sin as simply ignorance, as missing the mark. And we believe, as with Hinduism, that there is no evil. There's only God. We have a statement in this teaching. There is no place where God is not. And so, sometimes it's a real practice, a real, put on your hip waders, spiritual practice kind of thing, to look something in your eye, or in the eye when it doesn't look like God, and say, I know you. I know who you are. I know what you are. I know you are the divine. And I call it forth. Do that the next time you're looking at a flat tire. Or an icky diagnosis or something like that. So Ernest Holmes developed a teaching that resonates with the saying, when looking for the tree of truth in a forest of illusion, the only reliable compass is one's soul. He taught us to go forth from within, to look at the divine and find the truth, because it's living right here. For years I walked around going, that spiritual thing, they say that the answers are within. I got it, finally. The answers are within. And that's the only place we ever have to look. It's amazing. Yeah. I think I'm losing a page. There we go. Ernest Holmes brought us a teaching. It's built around 10 core concepts. I have a few of those here to share with you. Oneness, the principle of cause and effect, the powerful and dynamic capacity of prayer to change things. One that I love, it's called abundance. And I just love abundance. I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful to have an abundance of friends. I think it's wonderful to have abundance of finance. I think it's wonderful to have abundance of community. I think it's wonderful to have an abundance of heart, because that's really where we live. That's where we open up and breathe and do what we came here to do. He brought forth a coda of spirituality that beseeches us to live spiritual principle. We talk sometimes about people walking their talk. This one is about living your talk. And some days, baby, it takes hip waders. It really does. Yeah, because it's going to be thick. He taught us to live a spirituality that is about creating a world that works for everyone. And we have a beautiful piece of stained glass here on our wall. In weeks to come, somewhere up here, maybe along with this, we will have a beautiful copper backlit wall covering that says creating a world that works for everyone, because we believe that. We live that in this community. We live that by giving to others. We live that by giving to ourselves. This community, although it has had a short life, 4.5 years now since we started in my home, November of 2007, we have given to ARF here locally. That's our Animal Relief Foundation. We have supported CareNet over in Franklin. We have helped at the community table. Every year we jump on the bandwagon and do a massive blanket drive for the Jackson County Department on Aging. We believe in living this. We believe in being it and living those spiritual principles. We believe in being what love is, and that is letting our vulnerability expand. We believe that when we do this, we change the world, not just for ourselves, and not just for our kids, but for our children's children as well. Ernest Holmes brought us a teaching that beseeches us to recognize the eternal truth present in the writings of Marianne Williamson, where she tells us our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not? You are a child of the divine. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. I got to be around a little girl yesterday who's 7 years old. Amazing. And she was just sitting there. Her mom was talking about something she did when she was little. And she said, yeah, I was 18 months old and I got on a motorcycle and guess what I did? I cranked it. I'm so glad she's yours now. Yeah, it makes you really grateful for your children, especially when they're grown. So, we were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. That is what this teaching is about. And we get it, that it's not in just anyone. It's in everyone. It's in every single one of us. It is that spark. It is that thing that has brought you back from death's door. It is that thing that has gotten you up out of your bed, okay, when you didn't think you could, okay? It might have come with the face of a friend, but it came. It is that divine spark. That is what we teach, that it is who and what you are. It is our philosophy at Open Door Center for Spiritual Living to live what is known as the Global Heart Vision Statement. And so as we close today, I want to share this with you. It's amazing. And it is really and truly about living a world that works for every single one of us. And that's whether I'm white, whether I'm in the United States, whether I'm across town in a Baptist church. It doesn't matter. It is about living from a playing field that is totally equal and totally clear, that love is all there is. The Global Heart Vision Statement. So whereas in this information age the global brain has become an operative reality, we envision the emergence of the global heart to balance and guide the further evolution of humanity as stewards of our planet and all of its inhabitants. We see a world free of homelessness, violence, war, hunger, separation, and disenfranchisement. We see a world in which there is genuine and generous, continuous sharing of heart and resources. We envision a world in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. We see a world in which borders are irrelevant. We see a world which has renewed its emphasis on beauty, nature, and love through the resurgence of creativity, art, and aesthetics. We see a world in which fellowship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all of life. We envision Centers for Spiritual Living as a bridge across the illness and illusion of separation, thereby dynamically empowering the heart, the vision of this global heart. We envision Centers for Spiritual Living as united and actuated by this compelling vision of a healthy world. It is ardently committed to bringing this vision forth through its ministries and its transformative teaching. We see Centers for Spiritual Living as a global community of inspired individuals caring for and about each other and the entire planetary family, thereby bringing the gift of active compassion and kindness to the world. Our local ministries and communities become points of inspiration and influence, effectively advancing the vision of the global heart to benefit all expressions of life. And so we welcome you here to Open Door Center for Spiritual Living, to walk with us as we move forward in creating a world that works for everyone. Know you're loved.